What is a sound you heard when you were young and now that you're older, you no longer hear it?
The daily arrival and departure of a steam locomotive. Yes, I'm that old, but it was the most satisfying, powerful, unforgettable sound for a little kid. They were like huge living, breathing beasts.
Steam engines have always been this magical, mythical thing for me. They were phased out long before I was born and were consigned to museums even when I was a child, so seeing one in action is always amazing to me and hasn't lost any value. As a kid of the 80s, I grew up in peak Thomas the Tank Engine times and was obsessed with trains. Going to places like Crewe when they did their Thomas exhibition with all the exact train models from the show, as a 5-year-old, was like going to Disney World. You're right, they're like big mechanical creatures. They were amazing as a kid, but as an adult, I find them even more impressive feats of engineering. The UK has some amazingly well-preserved old-school train lines and steam engines.
The white noise sound of the TV when a channel had no reception. William Gibson's iconic cyberpunk novel Neuromancer opens on a description of the sky as being the color of a TV that's not tuned to a channel. A comment that stuck with me is how the tone of that scene changes whether you're picturing a staticky gray CRT screen or the HD TVs that replaced them, most of which represented a no-signal screen with bright blue.
Weird waterbed sounds. I was literally just talking with someone about why they aren't popular anymore. I had one as a kid and it was so cool. The downsides were kind of rough though. You can't have more than one person comfortably sleep in the bed. If it breaks, you are screwed. Most apartments won't allow them for that reason. They are really heavy and can mess up your floor. They're absolutely disgusting to clean. Imagine a year, 2 years, or 5 years worth of skin and hair that slides down beneath the mattress. They're flipping gross. However, cold in the summer, warm in the winter, and so comfortable when you're alone.
The telephone ringing with an actual metal bell, not a recorded sound played through a speaker. I got a landline for the first time in years recently, moved to the country and want an option if cell service gets bad or there's an extended power outage, and picked an old rotary model for fun. My 6-year-old loves calling her mom on it and sitting or standing by the phone to chat with her. It's adorable and nostalgic.
Dot matrix printer printing. They had these at my local library when I was a kid. It was a strangely comforting sound. They don't have them anymore, of course, and I miss them. That, and the ka-chunk of those big mechanical stampers they used to date the sheet on the books when you check them out. Those are gone now too. All computerized.
Dial-up connection. I used to wrap a blanket around the desktop to keep my parents from hearing the modem connecting in the middle of the night.
We lived right next to a huge field across the road from Lake Michigan, so on a summer night there would be a million crickets singing, and I could smell the lake through the open window right by my bed. Such a peaceful place, just thinking about it gives me the feels.
The sound of a packed arcade and in particular pinball machines. Now I'm middle-aged, I'm seriously eyeing a used pinball machine for my office.
My mom sending the shades up and saying,
"Rise and shine.
And
Up and at 'em."
accompanied by blinding light. Nighttime was,
Time to hit the hay.
and give me a kiss. That was long ago and gone forever.
My mom calling me to come into the house for dinner.
Silence. Tinnitus sucks. They didn't tell me it would get quieter and louder depending on how tired I am. Very little tinnitus in the morning, but by the end of the workday it's just a constant whine.
So I do have a story. One time in middle school, we had a substitute teacher for science class. He was well over the age of 70. For some reason, there was this weird, high-pitched noise during the independent work time. I think it may have been one of the LED light bulbs. Anyways, one of the kids complained about it, and we all agreed it was annoying. The substitute teacher thought this was odd, he couldn't hear it. A few minutes later, it's still going and a different kid complains.
Why won't it stop?
The substitute teacher gets mad at us, complains about us colluding to mess with him, promising us he'd tell our teacher that we made up a sound that didn't exist. The kids were confused why he couldn't hear it. I, as politely as I could, tell him we're all 13 or 14, maybe he just can't hear it because he's older than us. Now he's livid. As he's yelling at us for making up a noise that didn't exist and calling him old, a 25 or so year old person who worked in the office walks into the room and immediately looks confused.
What's that noise?
The substitute teacher muttered an apology under his breath.
The original emergency broadcast system message and sound. Also, my hometown used to have a fire horn signal system. When there was a fire call, the horn sounded. Then a pattern of short and long gave a number that corresponded to the location of the fire. Then the short bursts following the number called for the number of trucks to respond. Anytime you heard more than 5 bursts, the family would pile into the car to go watch the fire burn because it was guaranteed to be spectacular. Anytime there were more than 8 bursts, you could watch the fire from where you were standing. The one time there was more than 10 bursts, everyone took shelter in the basement. Shopping mall arcades.
If you're enjoying today's video, smash that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for more videos and interesting stories. Now let's get back to the stories of our lives.
Here's a little more obscure one. In the days before cable, you used an antenna to pull in TV signals. If you lived in a remote enough area, that antenna was on your rooftop, rather than just being rabbit ears sitting on top of the TV itself. If you lived in an even more remote area, the transmitters for the various channels you could pull in weren't necessarily on the same tower or even in the same geographic location, so you might have to turn the antenna to face the right direction each time you changed between channels. Most houses had motorized roof antennas, connected by wire to a palm-sized dial that sat next to the TV. You'd tune from, say, channel 3 to channel 5 on the TV, and then you'd turn the antenna dial to the position, say, north-northeast or 2 o'clock or thereabouts, that you knew was correct for channel 5. The motor on the antenna would activate and turn the antenna to the correct position, and then you'd watch the TV and make small adjustments to the position of it until you got the best signal. As a kid, my bedroom was just below the spot on the roof where the antenna was. I'd get sent to bed at 8 o'clock or 9 p.m. and my parents would stay up later watching TV in the basement, 2 floors below. I'd hear the antenna motor make its little grinding sound, and I'd know that my parents had decided to watch something on a different channel. I guess if I had paid enough attention, I could have figured out how much antenna movement there was between each pair of stations, and I could have deduced from the amount of time the motor was active which channel they were changing from and to. Then again, there were really only 3 channels at the time, so it wouldn't have mattered that much.
When I was little, on the weekends in the morning when things were quiet, I could hear the horses from the ranch in the hills above us neighing. Now the horses are gone, replaced by McMansions, and local traffic is so bad you wouldn't be able to hear them anyway.
A ringing telephone, and I mean a real bell with a real clapper, not some digital version. A TV being changed by the dial knob while mom shouts from the other room. Change them one at a time or you'll wear it out. Radio static between channels. The buzz of a tube radio warming up.
That sound your speakers made right before you were about to get a call on your cell phone. When I was in Japan around the turn of the century, I picked up a bauble. Phone baubles were all the rage back then. Some people had half a dozen of them hanging off their phone, which had a little motor in it, powered by the radio signal which causes the sound. If it can make the speaker's electromagnet move, it can make a motor move. This motor powered a little fan, and there was a little scent capsule in the bauble. So, your phone would release a scent when there was an incoming call. Never got around to using it myself. I'm sure I've still got it lying around somewhere.
A chorus of annual cicadas and trains in the distance at night. I grew up in a medium-sized town in the southeast US, and that's what every summer night sounded like. Now I live in a bigger city in a more northern state, and it's just cars and city noise at night. I miss it. It was the best white noise to sleep to. The gas station across from my childhood house used to ding when someone got gas. I have such a vivid memory of being a little girl and laying in my mom's room with the windows open, and it's a beautiful summer day with the wind blowing in and spreading out on her cool bed sheets. Her bed sheets were this specific kind of silky smooth that felt so refreshing to lay on. It's such an insignificant thing, but I remember feeling true relaxation in those moments.
I am 63. The sound of birds singing, everywhere, chirping and peeping so loudly that it could be heard indoors with all the doors and windows shut. It was a bit maddening at times, actually, it was fairly intrusive. Also, the sound of bees and other insects buzzing and whizzing in large numbers around every little patch of grass or flowers. Big yellow bees, the size of the last digit of your thumb. They were everywhere, and they were surprisingly loud. Now, the world sounds dead. Crows, maybe. But all the songbirds are gone, and the bees are small and few. As a child, those sounds almost annoyed me. But now, because I know they mean life, I miss them.
If you've enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and check out more videos from the channel.